NHL training camps have now officially started, but one of the biggest stories in the NHL right now is of an RFA that hasn't signed in Trevor Zegras of the Anaheim Ducks. Now, although the Ducks have the most cap space in the league, Trevor Zegras still remains unsigned, and the future right now in Anaheim looks murky. But what happens next with Trevor Zegras? Could we see a trade in the future, and what could a Zegras trade actually look like? Well, watch till the end for all the trade rumors, all the latest news as we break down every little piece of this story. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you're new for more trade rumor content just like this all throughout the year, because you won't want to miss any bit of hockey news. Now, this Trevor Zegras situation is getting wild because of how much pressure is on training camp for the Ducks, and for Zegras specifically, things have kind of come to a stalemate with both Zegras and Jamie Drysdale as well being unsigned, being RFAs still heading into training camp. For this Ducks team that was already going to be bad, this is the worst case scenario, especially considering how long they've had the opportunity to sign both of these guys. Now, things really started to hit a really big breaking point in the last couple of days, and we got confirmation from the Anaheim Ducks side on how stingy this process has been. When we look at this tweet from Felix Sicard, he's basically just quoting Renato Lavoie about what's going on with the Trevor Zegras negotiations, but according to Renato Lavoie, saying on TVA Sports that the Ducks are offering Trevor Zegras in the $3 to $4 million range. I mean, Zegras for a lot of people is overrated, a player that isn't going to be a franchise face or anything, but he's produced amazing results so far, and considering how much cap space the Ducks have, $3 to $4 million for Zegras is just... it's downright insulting, really. And when I say they have the most cap space in the NHL, I'm not lying here. They got $16.6 million to work with, yet still have Zegras, still have Drysdale, two cornerstones on both big-time positions unsigned. And for Anaheim, who is in this big rebuild, obviously you don't want to set a precedent where you overpay every single young player that comes to town, especially considering how many guys are going to have coming up, like Leo Carlsson, like Olen Zellweger, like Mintyukov, like Mason McTavish. You obviously want to make sure that the president is set and the expectation is set that you're going to have to battle with this team to get the best offer. They're not just going to give it to you. But in the case of Trevor Zegras, man, this is a player that has been a franchise face for them. And considering the cap space they have, sure, you want to be stingy. You want to make sure that you get him as low as possible. But $3 million, I think even the biggest Zegras haters would say he's worth more than that. At least I'd hope. And that $3 million point is just laughable again, considering what Zegras has done in his career so far at 22 years old. Even though he still hasn't been on the level of a Jack Hughes or anything, you see what Anaheim has been, you see how bad they've been, and you still see the point numbers there. 61 points in 75 games last year, and then this year, and the points upgrade, 65 points in 81 games. And sure, the defense might not be at a great level, the face-off ability might not be there, and this is something that maybe it could happen in the future where he does transition to wing, but this is one of those situations where I think for Anaheim, it's still a no-brainer to go, yeah, short term, maybe give him a little bit more higher AAV, because they're not going to be up to that cap ceiling anytime soon. For Anaheim, though, this is a player that has consistently been one of their best producers, and sure, has there been some trick shots here and there? Absolutely, but to me, with Zegras, he's still been a consistent player for them, and even though there's a lot of room to grow, that's why you give him a little bit of a shorter term deal, especially since he might carry over to wing, and that might get you a little bit less value, at least in his next contract, which Anaheim could really negotiate with. And to me, again, give him like a 3-year deal, maybe, get him like a $6 million AAV, maybe even $7 million AAV, try to see what happens. I mean, at this point, they have very few players to pay at this point, considering they still have a lot of prospects still trying to go off of their ELCs. And for Anaheim, to me, the fact that they've let this go on for so long, sure, you want to set a precedent that, you know, you don't want to overpay players, but you also don't want to set the precedent that you can't get deals done. With Zegras, this is a highly important deal that it feels like they made no traction on at all. And going back to that $4 million AAV, Corey Perry makes $4 million, man. I mean, this is like Andreas Athanasiou money right here for Trevor Zegras, which, again, at this point in his career, he's not going to be the best that he'll ever be, but again, that's why you go a bridge deal. With Zegras, it makes complete sense that you go for a bridge deal and try to make that happen. It seems like, at least from what we've heard before, that they have agreed on a 3-year term. They have agreed on that shorter term bridge deal, but the fact that there's so much of an in-between, I would imagine Zegras is probably asking for 6, maybe even $7 million on a shorter term deal like he probably should. I mean, what he's been doing in Anaheim, the points he's been putting up have been extremely valuable, even if there has been some deficiencies in the other side of the game. But especially if you're Anaheim, if you're Trevor Zegras even, you look at Anaheim and how they've done, it's like you need the offense I'll be providing. And especially in this situation, to offer him $3 million at this stage, obviously, you know, in the first negotiations, I can imagine them going this low balling, but this far in negotiations, we're in training camp, man. And the fact that they're still offering this insulting amount is insane to me. And this tweet by Andrew really encapsulates what I was thinking. Just give him $5 million/3 years, then extend him for more down the road, $8 to $9 million if he proves some of the other areas in his game, such as discipline and defensive zone play. But man, just pay him. And this is, I think, what is a pretty perfect encapsulation of what Ducks fans are thinking right now, as they probably should. Now, $5 million to me, I definitely don't think is going to happen if it is a 3-year deal. I think if, you know, Zegras wanted 5, I think the Ducks probably would have just done it already. He's probably asking for more like 6, more like 7. But again, if you're Anaheim, you just signed Alex Killorn to 6.25. I mean, you're giving guys already big overpayments. With Zegras, you look at that, and it's like, I would absolutely want more than Alex Killorn at this stage in his career, especially for the some of these prime years that they might be getting if they do sign him to a 3-year deal. So even though it would probably be more like 6.5, maybe even 7 on a 3-year deal, Anaheim should still probably do it. And especially if it's not a longer term deal where you're giving up too much commitment if he doesn't improve. That to me for Anaheim is the perfect sweet spot where, yeah, you don't have to give him an 8-year deal at $9 million, whatever it would be, if and hope and pray that defensive games gets better. You can kind of strangle him a little bit, hold him accountable to that, and if it doesn't happen, then you don't have to give him that next contract. But to me with Anaheim, the term and that being accepted is great, but at this point, I mean, what do you have to lose? Just give him another extra mil. It'll be okay, I'm sure. This is just the problem though with Anaheim right now, is that they're not going to be good. They're not going to sniff being good next year, but they're having these type of problems already. And that to me is just kind of a little bit of a scary thing going in the future. I mean, you're already having to deal with this with both Zegras and Jamie Drysdale. How are those other RFAs, how are those other younger players going to get their contracts now? Obviously, you can be stingy and try to set that precedent, but still, it's a little bit worrisome for how young of a core Anaheim has, how many good elite players are going to have coming up. It's going to be a stacked core. Are they going to actually be able to get deals done in time? Because so far, the track record ain't looking too hot. And then we go into a situation potentially involving a Trevor Zegras trade. Now, to me, these rumors were coming out of nowhere, and I want to really talk about them because some of these make sense, some of these really do not. The first one I want to talk about here, though, is including a tweet here from Ben Matheson, who said this: the Ducks are being choosy with Zegras. They want to break it. I heard there's a team looking that way, and it's the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres have to make the playoffs this year, and you solve your problem by bringing Zegras, the journalist told JIC. So apparently this is from Ronald Lavoie, but it's interesting here that there could be a potential link to the Buffalo Sabres, saying the Sabres have to make the playoffs this year, and it'll solve your problems by bringing in Zegras. Now, I'm not really sure what team Lavoie was watching if he said this, because the Buffalo Sabres did not need more offense last year. They were perfectly content. They were pretty amazing in that aspect. It was the defense and goaltending that absolutely sunk them. And I don't know if he's also watched Trevor Zegras, because he's not very good defensively. An understatement, but it's true. So putting that aside, a potential link of Trevor Zegras to the Buffalo Sabres to me also makes no sense whatsoever. Let's talk about that. Now, even though the Sabres in the offseason tried to fix some of those defensive issues, adding in Eric Johnson and Connor Clifton to deals, I still don't think that defense is going to be completely fixed. But you look at that forward group, yes, losing Jack Quinn will suck for the start of the season, but once he's back, to me, there is almost no need for the Sabres team to go after another superstar forward. You look at the center group, you got Thompson, Cousins, you could have Krebs as that third line center, you could have Middlestat in that third line spot, but you have so much versatility at center, and that's not even mentioning the guys that are coming up, like Yuri Kulich, like players like potentially Noah Auston, we'll see about that, but even players like Anton Wahlgren and Matthew Savoy. There's so many guys coming up that could fill those center spots for the Sabres. And you also look at the wings too of Tug. You could have Middlestat there. You could have John James Paterka, Jack Quinn, Jeff Skinner. And again, that's also not mentioning the forwards they have coming up on that side, like Isaac Rosen, Zach Benson, Poltapov. A lot of great options here for the Sabres forward-wise, not just now, but coming up. And if you are going to trade him as a centerman, it doesn't make sense because they already have 3 quality centermen there that could be centers, and at the very least two who are probably much better in the overall game, though Thompson's more alongside the Zegras defensive game. But still, you compare, of course, 2019 draftees and him and Cousins, and no way the Sabres are giving up Cousins. I mean, at this point, he is locked in a big part of that locker room and a big part of that team. They're not going to make that happen. So Zegras would have to be on the wing, but then he'd probably have to play behind a player like Jeff Skinner, perhaps, and he would fit better on the wing. But also for the Sabres, what does that accomplish? It doesn't get them any closer to the playoffs. He'd bring the same problems that they had before and multiply those problems too. The defensive game is going to get even worse for a forward group that needed more defense. And to actually acquire Trevor Zegras, who are you going to have to give up? It's probably going to have to be a player like a Middlestat or even a Cousins for the Ducks to make it happen, since they value him so highly, unless they're actually negotiating a contract. But it would have to be a player like that, or a John J. Spaturka, or a Jack Quinn, or a first-round pick, or a Zach Benson. All these different options for the Ducks that they would want to have, and they would not back down in a Trevor Zegras trade. It would be a mammoth deal for the Sabres that just doesn't make sense for them. They have so many good prospects coming up that can fill all these different roles for them. And to me, with Zegras, you could wait for the prospects and you could have them fill those roles that just kind of get rid of the deficiencies that Buffalo has, or you can add Trevor Zegras, who is pretty much exacerbating the issues that Buffalo had last year tenfold. So to me, it makes absolutely zero sense that the Buffalo Sabres would actually do that, especially giving up the assets they would have to give up to make it happen. But there could be more teams involved in a Trevor Zegras deal. Now, of course, the other team that was mentioned is the Montreal Canadiens, and of course the Canadiens were mentioned. It has to be, but I saw a lot of people talking about the Habs as a potential fit with Trevor Zegras, of course, with the Cole Caulfield connection and how much chemistry they have there. And I think Zegras would fit pretty well with the Habs. The problem is for them, though, it kind of creates a problem for them where you'd probably have to have Zegras as maybe the second line center, or maybe you'd want to transition Kirby Dach into that role, maybe have Caulfield, Suzuki, Zegras type line. I'm not really sure what you'd want to have there. You'd probably want to have some connection with Cole Caulfield on that line somehow, but Trevor Zegras would also kind of create the same problems for me. He would bring a lot of top-end talent and skill that they do not have. That would be the biggest thing, especially with how much they prioritize drafting D and drafting size when they do draft forwards. Zegras is kind of in that different direction, like Cole Caulfield, where he brings that element they don't have a lot in the team and the prospect pool either. So in that department, he'd bring a lot of skill the Habs don't have. I think he would create a lot of value for them. But at the same time, this Habs forward group is already looking pretty rough defensively, and Zegras is, of course, not going to help that whatsoever. And you also consider, of course, the price that the Habs would have to pay. It would be massive. I mean, it probably would require a player like a Newhook, or a big forward prospect like an Owen Beck and a first-round pick, and especially for the Habs, it might even cause their first-round pick, which could be in the top 10. A lot would have to go for Anaheim to make a deal happen, and especially considering the prospect pool the Habs have, I think they're in a weird situation. I think the Sabres honestly might have the better forward prospect pool, and that might be something Anaheim's looking forward to. With the Habs, they don't really have a lot of great forward prospects, and I think for the Ducks, that might be something that I guess kind of lets that deal fall through. But would you like to see the Montreal Canadiens acquiring Trevor Zegras? Would you like to see the Sabres acquiring? Would you like to see your team acquiring him? I mean, there's so many options here, especially considering the position that Anaheim's in. I still don't think they trade him, and I think they do get this deal done eventually, probably later on in training camp, but later than they should have. I mean, this should have happened early this offseason, if even then. I mean, this is a player that they should have had locked down, should have had a great communication with immediately, and should have made this deal happen already. I mean, for Anaheim, it just feels like a brutal offseason for them, where they're going out signing players like Alex Killorn and leaving players like Zegras and Drysdale to dry, and it's just kind of a weird priority for them. But we'll see what happens. I think Anaheim's in a weird spot though right now, and if this lingers on much longer, it's not gonna get pretty. But again, let us know in the comments down below, what would you want to give up for a Trevor Zegras trade? What do you think it could happen with him? Which team do you think he could get traded to? And if he does sign with Anaheim, what do you think the contract could look like? Is it more in the $7 million range? Is it in the Boldy type of money? Is it in the Caulfield type of money? Let us know down below. Of course, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the breakdown. A lot more coming, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online, all the Ducks fans, Habs fans, Sabres fans out there, and click on this card for all of my trade number content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I hope you have a great day. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.